We had proof, so it wasn't like we were just going to the front desk and demanding these rooms.
No, we just wanted what we paid for.
And so the first time around, I ignored it. I was like, it's not a big deal. Fine, we'll just have a regular room. I mean, we're not, those like, whatever. But if you guys saw these rooms, we have a 17, 13, and AZ and I in one bathroom. We're like, this is not going to work for 2 more nights. Come on.
All right, Miss Carla Araujo. We are back for another episode of Do the Work podcast.
We've had a heck of a weekend.
We had a heck of a weekend. Actually, it was a fun weekend, but it started out a little rocky.
So I'm glad we're back because I want to talk about it a little bit.
I do want to talk about it too, Karen. I mean, Carla.
Really? Yeah.
What?
That's just so rude.
It is, right? That whole word, Karen.
That's just rude.
Well, we're gonna get into that, but let's talk about this weekend. So we spent it.
I'm gonna tell you why on the side of being, that's so rude. Number one, when people say Karens, but there's many Karens like us because we're fed up with crap. We're fed up, and we're gonna speak up.
Oh, you're gonna own it now?
Yeah, I'm gonna own it. And I think every Karen out there, we're Karens for a reason because we're fed up. But I think that's very rude.
It's probably not the right description of what went down.
It's
not the right description of what went down, but I'm glad I triggered you. This can be good. I already feel the spiciness
I'm just saying,
from
I'm
you.
not a Karen, but many who are out there think that they're all crazy and they get videotaped and put on, certain social media out there.
People are ready just to record.
We flip for a reason. People are just ready. You're right. And if anybody sees me out there like flipping crazy on one of the resorts, on one of the resorts, let me explain. I have a story behind it.
There is a story behind it. So I planned this entire weekend. Okay. I want to take my family over to Las Vegas, and I planned all of it. I planned the dinners, I planned the shows, I planned the flight out there, the hotel, you name it. I was planning it like it was my thing. I wanted it to be perfect.
Before the perfection of your planning, though.
What?
3 weeks prior to
you're gonna burst my bubble now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 3 weeks prior to that, we actually planned for you and I to go out there alone to spend some time together. And then we had a big old hissy fit, which, by the way, is going to lead into this.
No, listen, it wasn't my hissy fit. You had an attitude.
No, you had a hissy fit. So which is going to lead into our actual subject of this.
Okay, so we lost some money.
We actually lost everything.
We lost the reservations.
The reservations to everything.
Well, not the flights. They refunded those. But with the reservations to the show, I just didn't cancel in time. But you were having an attitude, so we had to cancel that. And we'll talk about that at a later time.
We'll talk about,
But it was your fault
on that. Not my attitude. Again, we have attitudes for a reason because we're fed up. We're fed up.
Okay. All right.
That's all we got.
That's where we're going.
Until you tell your story of perfection of you planning everything.
So I planned everything like a good husband, a good father. Whatever. I planned. Now, when I go on trips, like my thing is, and you know this, Carla, like I always get really nice rooms. I mean, that's my thing. I want to stay in a nice big room. Now, where we stayed, it wasn't the presidential suite by any means, but it was like...
Let's not name the resort, though. You don't want to name it.
No, I won't call out the resort, but you could probably figure it out.
Yeah, let's not say. Let's not call. That's
I'm not going to call out the resort.
No, because it could have been good to other people. This is just our personal opinion. Yeah.
It was just this instance under these circumstances. Yeah. So I planned everything, and I planned the rooms. So when I actually called the resort to make sure that these rooms were going to be perfect. So there were like these junior suites, right? Like 2 junior suites next to each other because it was important. We got a 13,
overlooking the pool,
the whole 9 yards, and the strip at the same time, right? So, and we brought our 13-year-old and our 17-year-old with us. So the last thing that I want is for them to be like somewhere else completely, just on their own. Yep. It's not something that I like, especially in Vegas, as we got all these drunk people around, right? It's probably not the right environment, so don't judge us on being
No, but we didn't go there for that reason.
No,
we went there strictly for a show, which, by the way, was a phenomenal show, the Beatles.
The Beatles show.
And then we went out there for dinner, and we went out
to
there
STK.
STK, and some light shopping. So it was strictly for girls, and the pool.
Yes.
So we didn't do by any means any partying or anything like that.
No, nothing like that.
Or hang out at the casino, but it was probably one of the best times that I've ever had because of the chaos that went on.
Yes. So I planned it. And so we arrive in Las Vegas. Obviously, the air flight right now, like it seems like everything's late. And service overall, I think, has just really gone downhill.
The flight was already late. We showed up to the resort pretty late.
There was a line.
The longest line I've ever stood in.
It was about an hour and a half before we actually got to check in, which is the first time I've ever experienced that in Vegas. Usually it's quick and easy. And by the time we get there, we're checking in, and they say, "Oh, Mr. Araujo, all right, we got your rooms." And I said, I just want to confirm my rooms that they're next to each other. And she says, oh, no, these are the regular rooms, and they're a few doors down. And that's when I got a little, I guess, frustrated, right? Because I planned the whole thing. It was already picture perfect.
You became the Karen.
It wasn't a Karen just yet. All right. I think there's another word for, if you guys can help us with this. I know there's a word for a man when he, goes off the, falls off the cliff or whatever that may be. But so we were talking and they had the wrong rooms. And they wanted to compensate us and say, well, we'll just give you those rooms and we'll take $100 off. I said, that doesn't even make sense. How are you going to take us from a junior suite to a regular room and only knock $100 off? There's a significant difference if I go online right now. That doesn't even make sense. But I don't even want that. I want what I paid for. I want the junior suite, right? The two junior suites next to each other. So they made a mistake, and although the notes were all in there, okay, the way they put it in was just a mess, and they just didn't do their part. So turns out that they sold out our room, but one was going to be available later that day. So they got us hooked up into one junior suite, and we were waiting for the second one. So we're like, okay, fine, great. And no, it wasn't a junior suite. Not that day. It was just a regular room.
It was a regular room they put us in. So we decided to go into the regular room, like whatever, make nothing of it. And then we're like, let's just go have some dinner.
And then they'll have the two rooms for us later that day.
Yeah, so that's all. So we took off, and then we went out to dinner, our dinner reservations. Then we get back to the room at about 10, 11 o'clock at night.
This was only supposed to be temporary.
Actually, we get a text while we're at dinner saying the room is ready. We're like, wow, 11 o'clock at night, room is ready. Okay, so we go back to the front desk, and we're talking to the manager, which, by the way, this is our third manager we've spoken to. Mm-hmm. That manager was like, yeah, your room's ready. And, well, not the manager, the actual front desk girl was like, your room's ready, collect your key kind of deal. And then we asked, so it is a connecting suite, right? 2 connecting suites. She's like, no.
No, it's on the 5th floor. You're on the 17th floor.
No, you're on the 17th, and the other one's on the 5th floor.
So again, mind you, we got 2 junior suites, and they gave us one room that was just a regular room, and they were going to give us the 2 junior suites later that evening, which didn't happen. So they gave us 2 regular rooms. So again, I have a 17-year-old and 13-year-old. So of course we had an issue with that, and it was already late at night. And we've had these conversations throughout the day, and Carla, that's when Carla went unhinged. And
so he's not, okay, so you skipped all the important parts. So it doesn't matter. We ended up showing proof that we had an email that the communication back and forth, we were supposed to get 2 rooms, 2 suites, whatever. Yeah. So we had proof. So it wasn't like we were just going to the front desk and demanding these rooms. No,
we just wanted what we paid for.
So the first time around, I ignored it. I was like, it's not a big deal. Fine, we'll just have a regular room. I mean, we're not, those, like, whatever. But if you guys saw these rooms, we have a 17, 13, and AZ and I1 bathroom. We're like, this is not going to work for 2 more nights. So long story short, we were stuck in a room after the crazy madness that manager comes, and manager's like, sorry, can't do anything for you.
This is all we have.
This is all we have available. You're stuck in this room kind of deal. We're like, whoa, 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 whoa. So we ended up paying an enormous amount of money for these 2 suites, but they ended up refunding everything. But we're like, we don't want a refund. We just want what we paid for. And so, of course, the woman was looking at me like weird. She was looking at me with this look of like, I wanted something for free. I'm like, no, that's not.
But here's
what
the
case
problem.
Was.
Here's the problem. They lied to us, right? They lied to us. Different managers were telling us different things. They never had the 2 rooms ready for us that evening. There was nothing available, and not until the following night. But none of them could have told us that. Okay, so they kept on stringing us along. So by the end of the night, because this was the ordeal happening throughout the day. So at the end of the night, Carla straight calls them out and says, "You're a liar. All your management's lying. Everyone here is a liar. Here's what you said." And she starts recording this dude.
No, but before I recorded this guy, I had told him, you guys are all liars. Every single one of you, since we showed up this morning, are lying. And I just can't believe. And then this girl is sitting there like looking at me, smirking. And then I think I looked at her. I'm like, what are you smiling at? What are you smiling about? And then I looked at the manager. I'm like, you're all liars. And everything you're saying, I'm going to record you. So, of course, I get my phone up and I'm recording.
And she starts recording the dude. She starts recording the dude. And the dude looks over and he says, "Ma'am, I'm going to call security right now. You're not allowed to do that."
So I'm on paparazzi taking pictures of him.
And I'm like, no, don't go that far. Put that phone down. Delete the photos, Carla. Wink, wink. And just. So
then the girl gets all nervous. She goes, "Ma'am, I'm not laughing." I'm like, "You take that smile off your face." And she's like, "I'm not laughing." So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get arrested right now.
Yeah, no, but it was frustrating. And here's the thing: it was a long night, and that's I guess the question is like, when does it become okay to be frustrated with the lack of service and the lack of detail by their employees, right?
Well,
and there was just so much disorganization.
Yeah.
That, I mean, how much are you supposed to take before you
Well, one, it's not okay on
are
the way
sent over the edge.
It's not okay on the way I acted, and two, I really don't care on the way.
But I guess
Because
you acted that way because they were calling into question my integrity.
Well, that's
right?
where I was going. So one,
I had to actually pull out and give them every bit of like proof that this is what happened. This is what they communicated with us. This is what occurred. Well, long story short, that evening, all four of us spent the night in a like 300 square foot room with one bathroom. Okay, all squished in. My daughter's like their legs are hanging off the couch, and it was just a very frustrating evening. It was very frustrating. But they did promise us that the following day everything would be in order. So we get up the next day, we do our thing, and we call downstairs. I was already thinking they were going to mess this whole thing up. And yes, they had our rooms ready for us, overlooking everything that we wanted prior to, everything that I thought about when we went over there, everything that I planned for. And we ended up getting. We went from one bathroom to 4 bathrooms.
We ended up it was just massive, like 2 rooms.
2 rooms. 4 bathrooms. It was great. And they were connecting. My daughters were nearby. I didn't want to use the other room the night before, so that just sat there empty because I wasn't going to have my daughters on the 5th floor while we're on the 17th floor. But it was definitely a chaotic moment at that time, but it's very laughable now as we look at our daughters.
It was, and it was funny because you said something like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are out there that protect their family and their spouses or anybody, but I wasn't upset until
they made
it seem like we wanted something. It's like, we just want what we paid for. Please stop. They were giving us refunds and what is it? Credits. I'm like, stop. And I think I even told the manager, stop with your credit, stop with your refunds. We don't want any of your money. We just want what we paid for. We don't want to be stuck in a room, 300 square feet room. And then they were questioning you. So
who told you this? What was the name of that person?
So that's when I fired, and I'm like, you guys are all liars. And then I'm like, it's one thing to mess with me, but it's another to mess with my kids, especially my husband. So I'm like, don't mess with my husband, man. I'm going to go crazy on you. I don't mind getting arrested, spending the night, in 24-hour lockup. Like, you know what I mean? I'm Carla. I'm going to be all right. And then I'm looking over at AZ. I'm like, I'm sure you would have, gone to jail and taken me out, for a bond. It'd be all worth it. But I look at the girl like, what are you smiling at? She goes, ma'am, I'm not smiling at anything. And I'm like, man, as I walk away, I'm like, I hope she doesn't look up my name. I just hope she don't look up my name.
But, the next day it was great. We got to spend, the girls went shopping all day long. You and I spent some time by the pool. Then we went to the show. So it all turned out very, very awesome. But we could have gone down this rabbit hole, right, where we would have been stuck on how we were wrong the first evening. And just there was a lot of negativity kind of towards the end of the night. I think we were all just a little bit frustrated, but we flipped the switch. I mean, that next morning we're saying, all right, let's just let it go.
Morning we all woke up,
and let's just focus on the day.
The next morning we all woke up and we actually brought up the incident, and we were probably peeing in our pants because we were laughing so hard, and the kids were like, Mom almost got arrested for us. And so it did turn into laughter, but it was definitely a moment to talk about over Thanksgiving dinner when they're older.
It was one of the greatest times I've had in Vegas, and I've had many times in Vegas. And I got to tell you, spending with my family was just absolutely awesome. And although that first night kind of had us both at each other's kind of, on each other's nerves, at the end of the night of why did you say this? Why didn't you say that? But at the end of the day, it was an awesome, awesome weekend and funny. At the same time.
It was neat, and it led into multiple conversations. So it worked out. It was fun. It was definitely worth it. But again, going back to what we wanted to talk about was we needed that much needed vacation away from the craziness here, because 2 weeks prior to that, or 3 weeks prior to that, we had a huge argument. And we were like, we need to get away. We need to get away, which could have turned really ugly all over again in Vegas.
Yes, and this time we brought our daughter, so it was awesome. But we want to go with the topic today, and we only have a short time to actually cover it, which is who's watching over your shoulder, right? We love and marriage, marriage and business, love and business. It's tough, right? When you're in a marriage or in a relationship trying to run a business, there's a lot of things that can really, change the trajectory of both the marriage and also the business as business partners. And I think a lot of our feelings stem from our marriage bleeding into the business, and vice versa. A lot of the business bleeds right into the marriage, where we have to learn how to shut it off. But we had an incident, another issue, just a couple of weeks ago about again, not getting along, getting frustrated, the pressures of business. And a lot of people see what we have and they think, well, you know, they're trying to put a facade that it's always happy, that it's always good. I put up my first post on TikTok not too long ago, Carla. You should see the comments there. They're insane. TikTokers are crazy.
I know they bash on you a lot.
They're bashers.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but you know, everyone is a keyboard warrior, so I take it like a grain of salt. But it's never about how, you know, how perfect it is, because it's not. And there's many times where it is very, very frustrating being in a marriage. It's very frustrating running a business. It's very frustrating doing anything good, right? But a couple of weeks ago, we were feeling the pressures of our different businesses. At least I was. And whenever I feel the pressure, I need like a release mechanism, right? I need something with the blame or someone to point my fingers at. That's just what I do under these intense moments. And there was this deal that happened with one of our programs. And I put it all on you. I said, hey, if you don't know what to do next, or I forgot what the conversation was about. If you don't know where to go with it next, then I don't want any part of it, because I felt I was the carrying the burden of it, right? When in fact you do so many things behind the scenes, which has been like that for many, many years. I'm more of would you say I'm like the visionary person, and you're the systems and processes
kind of
person.
like you're the forefront of the operation. I'm the back end, making sure everything runs smoothly.
Everything runs. The people are in place. The systems are in place.
Just from the finances to just everything in general. Everything that runs on the back end.
And it's worked very well for us.
Right.
But at that moment, I was like, if you don't know what's next for this part of the business, then I don't want anything to do with it, right?
And it makes it hard. Go ahead.
We'll get into it. And the reason I was saying that is because there were some things that I thought you should be doing, right? Mm-hmm. And you were almost caught off guard by that. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason being is because you already know the setup between the two of us. I know the setup between the two of us. Mm-hmm. But then I called into question a different role that you're not used to. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. You haven't done this, you haven't done that. And then you looked at me, and this kind of like really just opened my eyes to a lot of things. I said, I have someone always looking over what I'm not doing, which was me. You said, you're always looking at me in the business of all the things that I'm not doing, that I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and I should be doing this other thing. And then you said, who's watching you? Mm-hmm. Who's over your shoulder on a consistent basis watching what you're not doing? Mm-hmm. Then I thought about that, and it pierced me, and I'll tell you why, because there was a lot that I wasn't doing. Mm-hmm. And all I was doing was really just projecting what I wasn't doing on you. Mm-hmm. And if I had somebody constantly on my shoulders about the things that I'm not doing, I promise you this operation will be 10 times bigger than what it is right now. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of things that I'm not doing. And that kind of pierced me to the core, because you were speaking truths. You know, and I'm like, hey, I wanted you 100% in. Are you in this conversation? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm 100% in with this business. And I want you to be 100% in. And then you looked at me again, and you made like 2 good points back to back.
And the reason why, because it's funny. I want you to finish. Because I think it's important that you get everything out there in the detail. So when we had this argument, and it's for many, many years that you're always telling me. So it's not just something that happened overnight.
No, I tell you all the time.
Yeah, always like what I'm not doing. And it finally, again, came in that improper, name that I became crazy. I became crazy and chaotic.
But you weren't. I think I was able to hear your side of it, because you didn't become unhinged. You were just methodical about how you
it wasn't craziness in that way. It was just more like, I'm just fed up. I'm fed up, and we went for some coffee, and we sat in the car, and I think we did a live video out there. We put it out there as well, but we had some coffee, and I was like, hey, and we sat on the car for 2 hours of a conversation. I wish I can tell you guys every single little detail.
And it wasn't a conversation. It was a lot of frustration and a lot of
But I wish I can tell you guys every detail. But the most important thing was, I told AZ, you're watching over me, and for a very long time, you've been watching over me to making sure I don't slip and making sure I'm doing all these things. And who is watching over you? Completely no one. And I guarantee that you are slacking in a lot of areas of the business. But you're continuously watching me. On top of that, my frustration came from also, I'm 100% involved with the household.
The home life, yeah.
My home life. And not just that, I don't think AZ pays even an electric bill. And so the only thing he does is pick up dog poop every once in a while here and there. And I have to tell him to do that. So as funny as it sounds, it's extremely frustrating to be with somebody for 20 years and going through the exact same thing over and over and over again. So I'm like, hey, I understand. I'm 100%. I work the exact same hours as you do. I work even longer because I still have to go home and do all the household, take care of the kids. And my kids are very self-sufficient. They take care of themselves, but they still need mom. Of course, they still need mom.
Scheduling appointments.
I still need to go to doctor's appointments. I'm like, you're not involved in any of that. You're a great father. You're a great dad. Don't take me wrong. But we as women, as working moms, it becomes frustrating because you're not involved in any of that. You know, I come home and it's not like you pick up your shoes and put them away. And I have people who clean my house. I don't even cook. And so I have people who make my food, and I have so much help already, but it's still so much work.
No, it's a lot.
Because I work so many hours.
Yes.
So, and that's what's frustrating. So I remember in the car, I was like, I run 2 different or 3 different businesses. I would include that in the household. Like, you don't involve yourself in any of that.
Yeah, you said you want me 100% in the business, but why don't you go 100% at home? In the house. And
I just couldn't.
And again, I think that was a valid point, because I think whenever it's a husband and a wife, and maybe it's something that you're seeing in your relationship, and again, we're just speaking from where we're at.
Or maybe taking care of kids. Like, you want your spouse to be a certain way. It's like, why don't you come in 100% as being the mom that's raising these little toddlers or just had a baby. My case are teenagers, but it's like, if you want me 100% here, I want you 100% at the house.
Yeah, and it's not, but again, I think a lot of that comes from because usually what I've seen, even within the real estate agents, within our brokerage, and also the clients that I have with our big money brokerage and do the work clients, it's if the husband started a business, they expect their wives to also be 100% in like them, but they forget all the other responsibilities that they have. So they get frustrated and start really overwhelming the spouse, the wife typically, in my situation. And it could be the other way.
It could be the other way around.
It has been the other way as well.
Yeah.
But where they start nitpicking all the things that they're not doing. You're not doing this video. You're not doing that email. You're not following up here. You're not, and really, no one's keeping an eye on them because they've been in the industry a little bit longer. They think they're the ones that know it all, or have a greater stance or a greater position within that business. Mm-hmm. So it's real easy to pinpoint all the things that they're not doing. But you made a very valid point. Who's watching me for all the things that I'm not doing? And I think that we all have to kind of reflect on that, because since you said that, I was like, damn, you're right. I don't have a leg to stand on. All I'm doing is trying to deflect all the things that I'm not doing, all the frustrations, all the things that I'm pissed off at myself for not doing. Mm-hmm. Now I'm pissed off at you because I saw that you didn't do this one thing or this other thing. And then when you kind of put the icing on the cake, when you said, why don't you go 100% in with the household? I'm like, damn, okay, you got it. You got me, but very valid. Yeah. Because no, I don't do the doctor's appointments. No, I don't run them around. No, I don't do all the other things at home.
It's even the simple things. When something, I don't know, when plumbing needs to get fixed. I'm not like, hey, I bring up the conversation, hey, plumbing needs to get fixed, or plumbing, or whatever the case may be. You're like, okay, well, call somebody. I'm like, damn. You're not at all. I would probably say you're 20%. And there's nothing wrong with that. Completely, because it works for us.
You're 60%.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? No, but it's
no,
true.
That's what I'm saying. And I can come and tell you I'm 100% in the business, and you can say, do you know what I do at the house? Like, I'm 100% in the house. So we can sit here all day long.
But the reality is I am probably 20%, and you are probably, I don't know, compared to what I do for the business, 70 or 75%. But at the end of the day, you're 100% in with other things that I'm not 100% in, and vice versa. I just have my strength, so I'm buying into my business is my strength. Right. It's like setting up the actual business concepts, setting everything up. That's my strength.
And I'm making I'm 100% on the back end, making sure everything gets we continue growing financially, and everything's taken care of, because then you wouldn't
you're
know
100% with your role. That's what I'm saying.
So
you're like 80% on the role that I'm doing, or 70%, but that's not the role you were meant to be. Just like, I'm 100% of my role at home.
So I remember we were in the car and we're discussing it. Yeah. And I looked over at you and I'm like, have you ever thought about maybe I just don't like to do what you do?
Yeah.
I just don't.
No,
and
well, you didn't say you like. You said you are good at what you do.
Yeah. And I don't want to do what you do. Yeah. And you looked over at me and you're like, I wouldn't want to do what you do. I'm like, well, then what are we arguing for? Yeah. This is like the end of the discussion.
And at the end of the day, it was just from my viewpoint, it was just I was frustrated that there was an agenda. There were certain things that I needed to accomplish, and I didn't. And
that's okay. Like I said, it needed to come out, because for years and I think we've said this before. But, you know, obviously we go back to our ways. But for years, I've been wanting to tell you, like, get off my back.
Yeah.
Like, stop breathing over my shoulder.
You just never made that valid of a point.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and where I was able to connect, and maybe you did, it just so happened that at that very moment, it just like opened up my perspective. And you're right. There's no one breathing down my neck the way I was doing you.
Yeah.
Watching every little thing you should be doing. Like there's 1,000 other things that I should be doing that I haven't done.
Yeah.
That I haven't done. But because no one's watching over me, you know, I don't feel that pressure. I don't feel that frustration either. And you're constantly feeling it for me because, well, that's just my forte. I look for opportunities. I look for things we should all be doing, but
you know,
I got to look at myself.
Another good point too was, you had said, this is just the way I am. And I'm like, well, this is the way I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off on you when I get frustrated. I'm angry. I'm like, stop. Like, and so, but it's just, that's another thing that I really found that we do to each other. I think you more than so. This is just how I am. Like, why do you expect me to change when you're not looking at the things you're doing? And you don't want to change, but you keep saying this is just the way I am. It's like, no, that's not the way you are. That's the way you allowed yourself to be, or I allowed yourself treating me a certain way. So, and vice versa. But and we stopped saying that now. Like,
it's a constant
this is the way I am.
Pivot. It's a constant recalibration.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. But you know, running a business is not easy. Being healthy and strong is not easy. It's like all these things require these necessary deposits. And, you know, it goes back to the whole TikTok thing now too, right? Like when we put out these videos, people are like, well, it's much easier just to divorce it, or it doesn't seem like that's a lot of work. Why even go that route? And everything great is. But that's the whole thing that we want to put out there is that, like, we're working to get better, right? And with that,
marriage is work. It's huge responsibility. It's work, and it's so much fun. It's daily deposits. And something we also have said over the years is that we're constantly changing. I'm not the same person from last week to this week. I'm constantly discovering new things about myself, from my personality to who I am, and just things. And so, and I want more. I constantly am wanting more, we're different. We're different constantly. So if we're not changing with the times, we're not changing with the relationship, it's going to be a dead end road for you.
It is, especially
in any relationship.
And that brings up a good point that we'll discuss in the future. It's like what happens when one person changes and the other person doesn't. Right. Now, it just so happens that we're both committing to on changing ourselves, like improving ourselves. So we're like at the same energy level, like because we're about growth and expansion and about becoming happier and more fulfilled, about creating something bigger. So we're both on the same mindset there. But there is a challenge there when one person's not on that same thing.
And that's okay. And it goes back to like, stop breathing over my shoulder. Yeah. So if the other person's not changing and you're like at a 10 and that person's at a 6, it's like, stop looking at your spouse and just keep rising.
Keep rising.
Yeah. And so you're in it for love. You're not in it for them to rise at a 10 or a 15 with you. Yeah. You're in it because you love them, you adore them. And that's one thing that I do. I love AZ. I'm here because I love them. I'm not expecting him to always be at a 10 with me and vice versa. So you just keep rising, you just keep going. But I hear that a lot where spouses are like, well, they're not doing this. And I'm like, well, why should they? Yeah. You should be doing it. Why are you looking over at your spouse so much?
And at some point, you know, you get to decide of what you want, but you don't build that resentment towards the other person.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of divorces end in resentment because you're watching all the things that they're not doing, when in fact, just focus on improving yourself. You'll learn to have more patience, more love, and you'll learn to lead to lead the ship forward.
Or they don't speak up. There's certain relationships that I see. This can be from the man to the woman, or the woman to the man. They'll speak to each other a certain way, and the man will shut down and be like, well, I don't want to start trouble. It's like, you're going to eventually start trouble.
We collide all the time.
In order to grow, you have to collide.
Yeah.
Or you won't grow. You won't get that frustration out. What do you want to change in this relationship? It's constant changing.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving. It's either evolving or unraveling or evolving. Unraveling or evolving.
I absolutely love and appreciate our arguments. Because we get somewhere with them every time. There's always a solution. There's always something that needed to come out. Sometimes we just don't know how. So the arguments are much needed, I think, in a relationship.
They are. And
it's not always.
It's that it leads you to discover, pitfalls.
Yeah.
It allows you to discover pitfalls. And, part of that argument that we had as well a couple of weeks ago was that we weren't spending a lot of time with each other. We had so many events happening, so many things going on that, our marriage was taking a back seat. And we both were just frustrated, right? There was no connection. It was just business. And there were some things that we weren't doing.
Yeah.
So the following 2 weeks has been awesome. We were going on dates, spending a lot of time with each other. And it seems like all that resentment, all that, just frustration kind of went out the window.
Yeah,
but it does require the deposits. Just like if you stop marketing for your business, you're going to feel the burdens of your inactions at some point. Yeah. And it's usually about 2 months down the road or 3 months down the road. Kind of like when we had that big blowout, it was because all the stuff we weren't doing a couple months before that. So in anything you do, even your health, right? Carla, you always talk about this. You see people get in tip-top shape and unravel that within a month, 2 months. And
or because they follow each other's energy, and it's like, well, my spouse is not doing this. It's like, stop worrying about your spouse, and why don't you go get yourself, into the best shape of your life, and let your spouse, tumble down with all this overweight or just eating like crap. Allow them to do it. But that's the biggest excuse, the blame, and it really gets me under my skin.
Let's talk about that next week. The blame game.
The blame game. While they're eating, I'm like, well, why are you becoming them? Like, why don't you?
That all the time.
I do. I get that, and it gets under my skin because.
Well, it's because my husband eats this.
Or because my wife doesn't want, or my wife just doesn't want to do this, and it's like, well, why are you focusing on your spouse? Yeah. Why not just show up sexy and let your spouse see you and be that energy they need? But stop waiting for them. Stop waiting for them.
A union is not becoming one.
Yeah.
And I think that's the misconception about marriage. You don't become one.
Yeah.
Like, stop going that route, because then you start using each other as the excuse of not getting what you want. Not getting what you want in your business, for your health, for your happiness. It's like the blame is always in that person because you're one. You're not one.
Yeah.
You're not one. Yeah. You're two individuals coming together for common goals. Anyway.
All right. So Carla, we do have some tips for you, though.
No. We're not going to do this.
Oh, we're not going to do the tips? Okay.
No, we're doing that for...
Oh, okay. All right.
Why you got to confuse this whole thing, dude?
I'm just naturally.
I was like on this high, and I got triggered by
just naturally coming in.
No, because you didn't listen to anything that I said before, and you bring it into the tail end of this.
Not at all. Not at all.
Anyway. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for this live episode of Do the Work podcast, Love and Business. And of course, you can replay and visit our past podcast on Do the Work on your favorite podcast provider, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any other thing that's out there. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Bye guys.